you. I'm Tehya Dryden from the Interdisciplinary Early Childhood Education Program here at Morehead State University. My mentor is Dr. Mee-Ryoung Shon. Briefly here at the conference, I wish I had the time to get into everything, but I don't. I apologize. So what is play-based learning? Play-based learning is exactly what it sounds like. It is incorporating play into the curriculum of young children. You can do this in a plethora of ways, such as incorporating materials into the lesson, allowing free play, and creating new ways to encourage creative expression in the classroom, and etc. Play-based learning is very customizable, and you can use it with just about any child. You can use the play to go over different developmental domains, and as educators, we try our best to provide an education that is developmentally appropriate to the child. A lot of educators don't really agree on how to do this, so there's a lot of discourse in the field, and there is a lot of things that have been adapted as educational practices that absolutely should not be, because they do not take into consideration the development of the whole child. What is the standardized approach? The standardized approach is not just based off of state standards. I agree with state standards, but what I don't agree with is the standardized approach, which is preparing children for taking state tests as early as preschool and kindergarten. That is not developmentally appropriate, and it is not good for the children. Young children are being taught to prepare for state testing as opposed to being taught to obtain knowledge and actually use that knowledge in their life. They're being taught to take tests. That's pretty much all early childhood is becoming, is learning how to take tests, and that is not developmentally appropriate, and that does not foster the development of the whole child at all. Every child works at their own level and in their own unique way. Everybody learns at their own pace, and not all children are able to learn in the classroom environments that are being set up in the schools now. So meeting the theorist, this is Lev Vygotsky. His theory is a social-cultural theory. Vygotsky argued that play is a vital mechanism for learning, especially in early childhood. He emphasized how social interactions during play help children construct knowledge and develop higher mental functions. He believed that imaginary play allows children to practice social roles, develop language, and stretch their cognitive abilities within a safe and meaningful context. Jean Piaget. His theory was the cognitive development theory. Piaget emphasized the importance of hands-on exploratory learning through play, especially during the pre-operational stage, which is ages 2 to 7. The pre-operational stage is a stage of his cognitive development theory. He argued that symbolic play, which is kind of like imaginary play, like when you were younger and you got a box, and that box could be a boat or a rocket ship, or that stick could be a wand, or whatever you wanted it to be. That's symbolic play. He argues that that helps children develop abstract thinking and understand roles and test out real-world concepts. Maria Montessori, her theory is the Montessori method. I personally really like her and her methods. She worked in the slums of Rome, working with children in a disadvantaged area. These children, their parents went off to work and they could not afford childcare. She also worked with children with disabilities, and she tried to foster the best education that she could. The Montessori method is a very hands-on approach with materials that have kind of an open-ended purpose, but a very specific purpose. Everything is structured, but it's also not structured. And I think that that is very good for the development of children, especially children with disabilities. It gives them some sort of autonomy, because in the Montessori classroom, everything is set up in a certain way, and it must be put back in that same way. Everything is done certain ways to make it easier to establish a routine for children with disabilities. It also helps them gain a source of dignity because it helps them be independent. If you know this goes here, you know later on that this goes here, and you can can more closely figure out how to adapt to your environment in the classroom. Howard Gardner, I'm sure many of you have probably heard of him. His theory is the multiple intelligences. Gardner's theory supports the idea that children learn in diverse ways, and that traditional academic methods, such as standardized testing, often fail to capture the full range of children's abilities. Those with disabilities or from disadvantaged areas are especially missed when it comes to assessment. Gardner advocated for learning experiences that tap into these varied intelligences, which thrive in play-based environments. On the scale, there are multiple types of intelligences, so like musical, math, logical, kinesthetic, those sorts of learners. Incorporating play, you can hit just about every single category, if not every category on there, with the standardized worksheet you can on. And finally, Friedrich Froebel. He is the father of kindergarten. He founded kindergarten, so we call him the father of kindergarten. Froebel created kindergarten, which means children's garden, and believed that play is the purest expression of a child's inner life. He created structured materials to encourage creativity, sensory development, and problem solving. Froebel's vision of early education was one of a nurturing, holistic process that should be joyful, accessible, and deeply developmentally appropriate, believing that it was crucial for those who face adversities. And that brings me to my project. I apologize, I had to do a lot of background information because I only had a week to actually conduct my project. I was a very late admittance to the Celebration of Student Scholarship. So my project in the field, most of my research was conducted in a small school in rural Appalachia. Some of my project was done with a low-income family with a child with a disability. We provided materials to the school, and we provided materials to the family as well. This school is in a disadvantaged area with high rates of poverty, substance abuse, and child abuse and neglect cases. The school district has a lot of behavioral issues due to the previously mentioned data. The school, however, also has a lot of amazing teachers that want to see their children succeed. Part of my research was providing 2 interviews from 2 of the teachers. I wish I had more data, but I don't. So the demographics and socioeconomics of the school district. The district has about 702 students. The school is predominantly white at 92.7%. The gender distribution leans towards the males at 55%, 45% female. And approximately 70% of students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Ohio State's average is 13%, if that tells you anything. Approximately 26% of students live below the poverty line, which is twice the state average of 12.4. The student-teacher ratio is 13:1. What goes on at home? Methamphetamine use is notably high in the school district. In 2022, 49% of criminal indictments involve meth-related offenses, something I know very well, unfortunately. Brown County prosecutors at Corbin estimates that just about 80% of felony cases are connected to methamphetamine in some capacity. Between 2015 and 2020, the overdose rate was 54.9 per 100,000 residents, placing it amongst the highest in Ohio and surpassing the national average. Brown County, which is a small little county in the Ohio River Valley, was ranked number 2 out of 88 counties in Ohio. That surpassed, I don't know what number 1 was, but if you put that to scale, you got Cincinnati, Akron, Athens, Toledo, all of these bad areas, Dayton, Portsmouth. Brown County is number 2. The neighboring county, which is Adams County, Ohio, actually has the highest poverty rate in the state, and part of the school district is in Adams County, Ohio. Adams County, Ohio has an overdose rate of 54.2 per 100,000 residents, ranking it 16 out of 88 counties in Ohio. When you have these issues going on at home, it is hard to feel safe to learn and play, because you're always wondering, am I gonna go home and be safe while you're in the classroom? And when you learn through play, you're able to put yourself in a different mindset. You're able to not think about what's going on at home. You're able to think about, well, today, instead of being a helpless child, I can't do anything at home, Today I'm a powerful queen and I'm here ordering my subjects around in the classroom with my little crown. You don't have to worry about what's going on at home. But when you're working with worksheets and computer work, you do. So the teacher response to my survey, I will be reading this off of here so I don't misquote anything. As play is phased out, my students have matured and been able to handle the work more as the year progressed. Each child's learning needs and styles are varied, and I do not feel like a standardized approach is helpful. I do not think it's developmentally appropriate. I think it would be helpful to have some flexible options to reach students where they are. A lot of my students are unfamiliar how to interact socially with their peers and instructors, which I believe comes from lack of exposure. I think it's more difficult for the children with disabilities because they tend to be more kinesthetic learners. I think play is a very important part of the kindergarten experience, especially in the beginning, and it is important to be able to reach different student populations. Teacher response to, I love a lengthy response, but I do not have time to go into that. When students get less playtime, they have trouble regulating their emotions. They are not capable of sitting for long periods of time. Teachers and parents also want children to enjoy learning. When we take away the natural way of learning, it causes them to not like school. We can't expect them to learn if they don't want to enjoy what they're doing. The standardized approach is great for gaining funds from the state to fund schools. It is terrible for children. We shouldn't expect children to be robots that sit at a desk and answer questions to fit the mold, especially in primary schools. The standardized approach is not developmentally appropriate. Students need to be inquisitive, creative, and exposed to different learning styles and have a love for learning. This style of education crushes that. The state's Department of Education need to change learning standards, standardized tests, and their concepts of education to what is developmentally appropriate. It starts from the top down. I'm going to skip down here. Parents that can't afford for their children to attend automatically are at a disadvantage from the students that get to attend. My school is also in a rural community. Children don't have exposure to life as more prominent districts do. Students with disabilities often require adaptations to a typical school day. Some need breaks, extra time for transitions, adaptive tools for support, and a less formally structured day. When schools cut back on play-based learning, the students aren't able to have these needs met. This sometimes leads to the students missing the curriculum. They are expected to master behavioral issues and social isolation. Children with disabilities. Play-based learning is essential for the education of children with disabilities. Play can be individualized and inclusive. Play allows for the growth of different developmental domains. Domains that children with a disability may struggle with can be focused more with different types of play. All children may not be able to work by doing worksheets and using computer programs, but all children can play regardless of ability. Summary. Children need play-based learning now more than ever. Children with disabilities and children in these disadvantaged areas need a more inclusive education. Fostering development through play helps these children learn concepts that they may not have been able to otherwise, as well as providing a developmentally appropriate education. When home is a high-stress environment, it is hard to learn, play, and feel safe. As educators, it is our duty to not only educate, but bind the wounds that this world has inflicted on these children, to send them into the world stronger than they were, and to be a refuge from the horrors they may have to endure when they are not in the safety of our classroom. We must provide a developmentally appropriate education that fosters the development of the whole child in a safe and nurturing environment if we want our children to learn and grow. Play is an easy addition to curriculum to meet the needs of all children. All children can learn and grow through play. I plan on continuing this study. I didn't have very much time to do it, so I plan to continue it to my collegiate and professional career. I believe strongly in the importance of play in the early childhood years, and I will continue to advocate for children's rights to a free and appropriate education. Play will always be thoroughly embedded in my instruction. And that is the end.